A very good morning to one and all present here. So today we are going to have the online session of the BT Society. So I am Rekha Ravindran from Biotech Department, and I am the faculty coordinator for the BT Society. I would like to welcome Sriram, who was our alumni, and so over to the BT core team.
Greetings to one and all present here. Respected Dean Dr. Jana Rajkumar ma'am, Dr. Rekha ma'am, esteemed guest Dr. Sriram Kumar and his parents, and my dear friends. I am Priyanka, the HR of BT Society, Department of Biotechnology, Rajalakshmi Engineering College. Today marks a special occasion as we gather to introduce the first session of Pros Connect, a guest lecture on pathways to an academic career abroad, requirements and opportunities. Get ready to be inspired and engaged as we embark on a journey of explorations. Now, I would like to call upon Nandita, the Chief Coordinator of BT Society.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Nandita N, the Chief Coordinator of BT Society. And it is with immense joy that I take this opportunity to introduce the dynamic core team of BT Society of the term 2023 and 24. Let me introduce the Secretary, Malini M. and Priyanka A. as HR, and Jyoti Murugan S. as Design Director, Vishali E. as Public Relations Officer, Haripriya N., Madhubala S., and Saranya S.R. as the creative heads. And we, the core team of BT Society, are excited to present the multitude of excellence events on the horizon. Let us get into this event. I invite Madhubala to introduce the chief guest.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Madhubala, Creative Head of BT Society. I'll now take the privilege to introduce you to Dr. Sriram, a distinguished alumnus of Rajalakshmi Engineering College and an exceptional scientist in the field of virology. Dr. Sriram has earned his PhD in biology, specializing in virology from the University of Münster, Germany, graduating magna cum laude. He also holds a bachelor and a master's degree in biotechnology from Rajalakshmi Engineering College, each with first class distinction. Dr. Sriram's research spans several esteemed institutions worldwide, including the University at Münster and UT Southern Western Medical Center in Dallas. His work in SARS-CoV-2, cardiovascular diseases, and other viral mechanisms has been published in numerous high-impact journals. Among his many accolades, he also received the Emerging Researcher Award for InnoScience Research Malaysia and the B4 Young Scientist Fellow at Harvard University's South Asian Institute. His dedication to science extends beyond research, having mentored several teams in the IGEM synthetic biology competition, achieving multiple awards. Dr. Sriram also plays a crucial role in the professional societies, including the Young German Society of Immunology and the Young German Society of Virology. His efforts in biosafety and biosecurity, particularly in drafting legal declarations and policy research, underscores his commitment to ethical scientific advancements. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dr. Sriram Kumar.
Thank you very much. I can now share my screen. Do you all see my screen? Is my screen visible now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. It's visible.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, I hope it's in screen share mode now. Yeah, thank you all for having invited me for this guest talk. I still feel like a student, not really a guest. Yeah, thanks for the very nice introduction by the BT Society team, and also thanks to Rekha ma'am and Jonah ma'am for the kind invitation. So I will be talking a little bit about a potential pathway to an academic career abroad, and what will be the general requirements and what kind of opportunities you can expect after your bachelor's or master's, or more so after your PhD. So this will be heavily focused on my journey, just because I'm familiar with it and that I've taken it. But there can be multiple paths to coming abroad and settling down here. So as already mentioned in the introduction, I'm living in the city called Münster, which is in the northwestern part of Germany. And it's also the bike capital of Germany, as you can see here. It's not as big as Berlin or Munich. It's a relatively small city, but it's known for its international student population because it's basically the university and the students and the professors here. I'm working at this institute called the Institute of Virology, which is situated in the Center for Molecular Biology of Inflammation, which is affiliated to the Public University of Münster. And we majorly focus on inflammation from several different contexts. So this is basically housing 7 different institutes that's investigating mechanisms of inflammation from different contexts. And we, at the Institute of Virology, we're focusing on inflammation in the context of virus infection. Prior to the coronavirus pandemic, we were focusing only on influenza, but because of the strong overlap between the 2 viruses, we also are now investigating inflammation in the context of coronaviruses. So how is it that someone that started from REC has come to Germany? This is exactly the part that I will be discussing in today's presentation. So my research interests started from as early as my 11th grade, which was back in 2011, where I had the chance to work at IIT Madras through a summer program for school students, where I had the chance to work with Professor Gautam from Anna University in collaboration with a few professors in IIT Madras, where I had the chance to experience a research lab for the very first time in my life. I did a lot of bacteriology. I learned pipetting for the very first time. So it was basic microbiology and biochemistry. And this experience was already exciting for me because I chose biology as my stream, as many of you during your 11th and 12th. But I was really struggling to identify whether I want to go into medicine or I want to go into research. And the fact that I had this chance to experience a full-fledged research setting already early on during my school, it was really helpful to exclude that medicine was not really my forte, and I was really excited about research. So it all started from there. And after my 12th, doing a B.Tech was a very calculated decision because I was already quite clear during this experience that I want to get into research and it's going to be a PhD that I wanted to pursue. So I joined REC for B.Tech Biotech in 2012, and I had a great time. The curriculum was quite different back then. That we had a lot of general engineering modules during our first year, and I got into the department only during the second year. But given that I was really excited about research already early on, I started working on mini projects already from the second year of my B.Tech. And this is something that I would really recommend many of you to do because from what I know, almost all the faculty members are involved in some sort of mini projects or in-house projects. And there's a lot of opportunity to try out things. I understand that many of you might not have this full-fledged research experience as early as in school, but when you get to the department, this is always a possibility that you can get involved in mini projects with other faculty members to experience what research looks like already, maybe in your second year. I then had the chance to apply to a lot of internships and fellowships with the research experience that I accumulated during my second semester or second year on. I'm very sure you would have heard about the Indian Academy of Sciences. I know that this is one of the flagship accomplishments of REC students. I know many of our students have had this fellowship to their CV. So I also applied to this during my third year, where I was matched with Professor Soma Chattopadhyay from the DBT Institute of Life Sciences. I can maybe take a few minutes to discuss what happened during the application process here. So, as I said, my very first research experience was mostly bacteriology. And on campus, I was working mostly with Anita ma'am back then on chemical engineering projects. And she was also working a little bit on wound healing. And this really inspired me towards immunology of wound healing. And my statement of purpose for this fellowship was strongly driven on immunology. So, as you all might be familiar with, for all of these fellowships and internships, you will typically have what's called a statement of purpose or a motivation letter, where you convey your research interests, your previous experiences, and you identify maybe a few mentors that you want to work with. So my statement of purpose was strongly on immunology, and I identified immunology mentors from various parts of India. And when the matchmaking happened and when my application was through, I was really surprised to see that I was matched with a virologist. And this was already a little bit doubtful for me because I had no experience in virology and I had no idea if that's what I wanted to do in life. But given that this is actually a really prestigious opportunity, and I knew that this would really be helpful for my future research careers, I anyway took it. Although there was a sense of hesitancy from my side because the subject was not really aligning with what I drafted in my statement of purpose. So what I did was that I contacted this mentor, and then I tried to tell her that I have a hard time understanding why I was matched to a project on virology when my interests were revolving around immunology. And she was very nice to make me understand that biology is a really big field and everything is interconnected. And it's one thing that we separated into different subfields. All of them go hand in hand. And when it comes to immunology, you can also apply immunology to virus infection, to bacterial infection. Immunology basically is in the context of all physiological and pathological processes. So that really shaped a different thought in me, and I was really up for it. And I went to her lab, and that was my very first virology experience. I had the chance to learn a lot of RDNA technology, cloning, immunofluorescence. I think that was the very first time when I saw a live virus under a microscope. So it was a 2 months research period in her lab in Bhubaneswar, but this was the turning point in my life. I would say that it really caught my interest in virology. And something that I can mention here is that good mentors can really shape or influence your career trajectory. And I was really fortunate to have been matched with someone like Soma ma'am, because I still remember that at the end of my tenure in her lab, she mentioned something that really stuck with me for so long, or even now, that if you think about it, we have a lot of technological advancements going on in the field of biotech or the broader fields of science, but there's still a lot of virus infections that we do not yet have a grip on. We do not have approved vaccines or therapeutics, and there's a high level of morbidity and mortality associated with these virus infections. And this really kind of made me realize that there's a lot of gap that we need to fill in terms of research and clinical practices in this field. And that's where I saw myself having an opportunity to jump onto. One piece of advice that I can drop here is that I would really recommend you all to apply to as many open calls for internships and fellowships as possible. Because from what I can remember, and retrospectively speaking, I did not apply to just one of these, but I applied to, I think, 9 or 10 of the open calls of internships and fellowships back then. And I also had 2 other calls that I was accepted to. So it's better to be in a position where you have different choices that you can choose from rather than having one. So never limit yourself in terms of applying to multiple calls just because you finished applying to one internship. Yeah, so you have to do this because this will increase your success rate. You can end up with at least one in case all of your applications go in vain. So as I mentioned, this internship opportunity was really instrumental for me to decide that it's going to be virology. That's going to be the rest of my career. So I was from then on very specifically applying to only virology projects. And one of the calls that I dropped for my internship here was a call from CCMB, which was also focused on viruses. This was more on hepatitis, but I just negotiated a little bit to take this offer for my final year project instead. And for this, I had the chance to work with Dr. Krishnan Harinivas Harshan at CCMB, which stands for Cellular and Molecular Biology, which is in Hyderabad. So this was basically, as I mentioned, an internship opportunity, but I was able to negotiate a little bit and push it for my final year project in 2016. This was a very different virus to work with than what I worked with chikungunya virus during my previous internship. I did again a lot of cloning, but this was also a lot of PSL3 experience for me. It was a very different virus again, and the kind of questions that I addressed were mostly in the intersection of cancer biology. As you all might know, hepatitis is a virus that can also potentially cause hepatocellular carcinoma. So this was a really interesting twist to the virology facet that I had in mind, because it gave me an impression that viruses do not cause just virus infections, but can also potentially cause cancers. Of course, this is not going to apply to all viruses, but only to oncogenic viruses. So this was another flavor in terms of techniques as well as topic to the research experience that I had. So I finished this project, submitted my thesis, and graduated from my master's. Something that I would like to reiterate is that if you have multiple offers from your internship calls, do not decline the other ones because they're overlapping with the one that you chose, but rather try to negotiate and postpone it to another period and try to have it, because it's quite hard to have multiple offers. So it would only be wise to keep these offers and then add them to your CV. Yeah, so as I mentioned, I completed my B.Tech after defending my thesis. And as many of you might already be thinking, especially the ones that are in their third years or in their final years, that's the time when you will start to think about your next opportunity. And I think by the end of my third year, I had a good CGPA. I also appeared for TOEFL and GRE, and I had pretty decent scores. From my research experience with Anita ma'am, I was also working quite a lot with Rekha ma'am and Sujata ma'am on a lot of bioinformatic projects. So I actually had a couple of papers, and I also had a pretty decent research experience. So it was my impression that this was a decent profile to apply for direct PhD. So during my final year, when I was carrying out my thesis at CCMB, I also started applying for, I think, 5 to 6 US universities for my direct PhD. I would like to take a few minutes to describe this experience, because this is something that might be very important for many of you, especially the third year and final year students. As I mentioned, my line of thinking was that I had a good CGPA, I had good research experience, which were backed up by publications. I had good scores for my GRE and TOEFL, and it was my impression that this is already a good profile to apply for direct PhD and not for masters. And I did not apply for any course with any university for my masters. But all of them were directed for different PhD programs. And another mistake that I did was to target really high-profile universities. Retrospectively speaking, I think this was a really big wrong move, because when I think about it, credential-wise, maybe I might have had it, but there's also something called scientific maturity, which only comes over time. And when we are talking about PhD applications, you will be competing with applicants who've also completed master's thesis, and have better publications than what we might get out of bachelor's, right? So we might have to calculate this factor in while targeting universities for direct PhD. It's definitely possible. I wouldn't say it's not possible, because there were many of my friends and my juniors who might have also who were also successful in getting PhD, direct PhD positions. But you might have to be very calculative and gauge if your application and your scientific maturity will be strong enough for you to fetch a direct PhD application. What can be a safer move at this career point would be that you apply for direct PhD if you're very sure that your application is strong, but also have 3 to 4 applications for masters so that you're still safe, that you don't end up with no application, which was my case, that I didn't have any application at the end of this tenure. But if you turn in applications for also masters as a safe move, you can at least end up for masters abroad. So that might be a very important lesson that you might have to keep in mind so that you don't end up making the same mistake that I did, but at least you're creative in making better mistakes or new mistakes. But something that I did right here was that I had other plan Bs, which saved me, which is the next advice that I would give you. So things will not always work out according to your plan. However bulletproof you think your plan A might be. So always have a plan B, and your plan B should be really strong and equivalent to your plan A, and should not be something random that you want to do just to fill time and to not have a gap in your CV. So what did I have? I had the chance to participate in this competition called Voice for Biotech in my third year, which I think, again, many of you might be familiar with, given that REC is again winning this year after year. And one of the things that you will receive if you're a winner of this competition is that you get to perform a 6 months internship with this company called Novozymes, which is in Bangalore, which is the organizer of this competition. So Novozymes is a Denmark-based company which is specializing with enzymes and making engineered enzymes for several different applications. And I had this open offer to perform an internship with Novozymes for 6 months. So this somehow came in handy. And this is actually a pretty good company because they have really good funding, they have really good facilities. There's Denmark facilities for research in-house. So I thought this would also be a good move because I never had the chance to experience research in an industrial setting. So I just wanted to try out if this is something I would fit into and if this is something I can pursue as a career option. So I joined the high throughput activity assays department that is focused on engineering mutant enzymes and then going for robotics-based high throughput screening. So it's a lot of biochemistry, bioorganic chemistry that we've learned in B.Tech that you will practically perform in terms of engineering enzymes. So technique-wise, technology-wise, this was an amazing infrastructure unit. I had access to a lot of network. There's also a lot of scientists from Denmark that were in-house. So this really shaped my scientific thinking and scientific standard, especially given that I only had the chance to experience medical-based projects in my previous internship opportunities. I had the chance to experience industry-based projects here. But what happened at the end was that I realized that I was not really cut out for industry-based research, especially because it's more routine. Some people might enjoy it. I just realized that I was not cut out for it. I was more tuned to question-based research, and I really needed that health-based impact projects. So I decided to get back to academic research, or let's say healthcare-based research. So I had the chance to again work in a medical project with Dr. Luke Elizabeth Hanna, who is a scientist F at the National Institute for Research in Tuberculosis, which is in Chetpet, Chennai. It's an ICMR lab. They're primarily focused on tuberculosis, but given that a lot of tuberculosis infected patients also suffer from an HIV co-infection, they have an HIV unit on campus. And I had the chance to work on a vaccine trial unit that's testing HIV vaccines on human volunteers. So this was, again, a lot of polychromatic flow cytometry, clinical trials, human volunteer-based clinical research. So this was, again, a lot exciting because it's one thing that I had worked with a lot of medical-based projects previously, but not with clinical volunteers. So this was very instrumental from that end, that it added another perspective to my research trajectory. So again, a point that I would like to add here is that try different research environments or job roles, because it will help you figure out what you're cut out for and what you like, what you're excited about. And this will give you clarity on what you want to pursue for the rest of your career. So after this, I again had the chance to think about my master's, because previously I thought about a direct PhD and that plan flopped. So I, of course, had to think about my master's. And during this 1 year where I was working with Novozymes as well as at NIRT, I had the time to prepare really well for GATE, for ISC entrance, so all of the Indian national entrance examinations. And I cleared both GATE as well as ISC for master's or MSc. And I also had offers from NIT for BSc Biophysics. And by then, I was already quite stubborn that it's going to be microbiology and especially virology that I would like to specialize in. And having had an offer from biophysics did not really help me, so I sort of did not pursue it. But what I did was that I used my GATE score to apply to Anna University counseling. And this was also the time when our college was moving towards an autonomous setting. And from what I heard from the department, there was a lot of flexibility to pursue research through internships and fellowships through the autonomous curriculum. So this made sense, a lot of sense for me, because it gave me the flexibility to think about pursuing international research, either through internships or for my final year project. So I sort of used my GATE score to apply to Anna University, appear for the counseling, and get back to REC. And I joined REC in September 2017 for my M.Tech again. And I think, as you might have heard from many of our faculty members, I was hardly on campus because I was constantly on trainings, workshops, conferences, and internship programs. And that was also one of the major reasons why I came back to college, because that's not something that I would have gotten if I had joined another institution. Basically, the freedom to design our own career pathway, to try out things and not just sit in the classroom and then listen to classes and take up exams. So people who are in the autonomous curriculum, I think all of you are within the autonomous curriculum, from what I guess. Try to capitalize on the flexibility of the system and try to plan your career and your, let's say, that the things that you could possibly do outside of your regular curriculum. What I again did was to apply for a lot of internships and fellowships, and I had the possibility to secure a CSIR summer research fellowship that gave me the possibility to go to CSIR Indian Institute of Integrative Medicine, which is in Jammu. And the project was more focused on developing 3D experimental models for pharmacology testing. I was working a lot with Rekha ma'am already by then, where I was working with this formulation called Vitafrin A, which is a vithanolide formulation from ashwagandha. So I had a lot to do with Sujata ma'am, Jonah ma'am, and Rekha ma'am on this. And I had the chance to work with Dr. Anindya Goswami, who also works with the same compound, but in the context of cancer biology. And my project was more towards developing experimental models. This was nothing related to virology, the field that I want to specialize in, but I still accepted this because developing experimental models can be applied on any field. And I just thought that having this experience can be of use to my virology career in a broad context. So I had the possibility to do this. And what I was also in parallel working on was an opportunity to go to Singapore for my master's. But before this, I would again like to reiterate on this point that we need to try different research environments or job roles just to gain clarity on our interests, because this was not, again, anything related to virology, but this was more towards model development. But this still gave me the chance to think about how I can apply this experience to my virology career that I want to specialize. As I mentioned, when I was in Jammu, I was already taking up interviews to go to Singapore for my master's thesis, where I specifically applied to this professor named Professor Richard Joseph Sugru, who is working on this virus called RSV, respiratory syncytial virus, which is also one of the well-known respiratory viruses. And he was starting also a project on influenza viruses. And there is a possibility to go to Singapore and to NTU through this program called the NTU India Connect Research Internship, which our college is also quite well participating, at least back then, I don't know now, where master students can have the possibility to go to Singapore and then observe a project for 6 months or 1 year, and then come back to college and then defend it. So I made use of this program through the autonomous curriculum, and I had the possibility to perform a research project on influenza viruses. If you have the possibility to go to Singapore, I would definitely second it, because culturally it's very close to the Indian culture, so you will not experience a lot of cultural shock. It's a really amazing city, a lot strict and a safe city. And this is definitely a must try for someone that does not want to go far away from home, but also want to experience international culture or foreign culture. And this was very important for my further research trajectory, because if you have this short-term internship credential in your CV, it's much easier to secure a position for your PhD later on. And I got to know this already early on, which is why I was very specifically hung on having this internship opportunity for my master's thesis. So if you have the possibility to try international internship programs or fellowship programs, please do, because this will definitely be a strong point in your CV, which is, of course, my next point. International research experience can add a lot of value to your overall scientific portfolio. So I came back by the beginning of 2019. I finished a lot of my analysis for the data that I collected from Singapore. I put together my thesis and I defended it. And this was also when iGEM was picking up in our college, and I had the chance to get involved in iGEM and also handle my further PhD applications, which I again resumed after my thesis. So given that by now I had a lot more of research experience, which of course shaped my scientific maturity. This also gave me a lot of scientific clarity in terms of what exactly I want to chase for my PhD. I felt that I was maybe in a better shape to apply for PhD opportunities abroad. So I again began applying for PhD positions, and this time I did not go to US, because in US it's a minimum of 5 years for you to complete your PhD. And I just wanted to have a situation where I can complete my PhD a little earlier than 5 years. And I just got to know that in Europe, the average time for completion of PhD is 4 years. So I was specifically applying to a lot of European universities. And I had 3 offers, 2 from Germany and 1 shortlisted in Netherlands, which I did not pursue later. So before I get to that part, I would like to again reiterate 3 points, which is to apply to all open calls for not just internships or fellowships, but most importantly for PhD, because you will never know if you will end up with an offer after several months. So you need to increase the chances of your success by applying to as many positions as possible. You also need possibly an international research experience in your scientific portfolio to stand out and to be internationally visible, which is of course an unsaid rule in your CV, or you need to be exceptionally good with your national research portfolio to stand out in the international applicant pool. And what's extremely important for PhD is you need to have identified your specific field of interest. Saying that you're excited about molecular biology or microbiology will not really help. You need to have a very specific research experience and a research interest that you want to talk about in your statement of purpose. During my master's thesis, I already was really excited about virology and specifically on influenza viruses. and I applied only specifically to influenza-based projects or influenza-based open calls, which I think was really a strong point in my CV because I was able to base my statement of purpose or my motivation letter solely on my
Excuse
master's
me.
thesis.
Hello. Sriram, sorry to interrupt
Yes, ma'am.
you. The slides are not like only the first one is visible. Is it okay? Like,
Uh, I'm actually changing slides so far, ma'am.
oh, but the slides only we can see only the first one first.
Aha.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I am maybe sharing it again. I didn't know
yeah,
that
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
slides were
That's
not.
fine. Only the first one we could see. The other slides are not visible.
Now, ma'am, is it visible?
Sriram, your slides weren't moving, ma. I thought maybe you were not showing any more slides.
Oh, I did not know that this was the case. But is the slide visible now?
Yeah,
Is
now we are able to see.
And the
okay, ma'am.
second one, lessons I have learned. Okay, fine.
Yeah, I was actually changing my slides all through this while, ma'am. I
Okay.
just didn't know why this just got stuck. But maybe I can maybe do a quick recap and not talk about the whole thing, just so everybody gets the chance to see what was. Is the slide moving now?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I basically started with what my city was and what we do in our institute, and then maybe gave a brief picture of how far I came so far. So I started off with this research experience in school, and then I joined college. I went to Bhubaneswar for this research experience, and then did my master's thesis on hepatitis. I came back to college for my M.Tech. Meanwhile, I worked with Novozymes and NIRT Chennai on HIV. Came back to college for my master's, went to Jammu for another internship and to Singapore. And I came back to college to defend my master's, and I'm now in the phase of discussing my PhD. I'm really sorry, I didn't know that my slides were not moving. I hope you can at least get to know the rest of the journey, which is not actually a lot. I started my PhD in January 2020 in the research group of Dr. Linda Brunota and Professor Stefan Ludwig at the Institute of Virology Münster, where I worked with predominantly on influenza viruses, but because this was also the start of the pandemic, and given that coronaviruses also had a lot of overlap with other respiratory viruses, I had the chance to work on coronaviruses too. So again, a point that I would like to make here is be proactive and make use of your current circumstances to your advantage or your benefit so that you can broaden your research experience that can be helpful for the rest of your career. So here I did a lot of different projects that were streaming from molecular perspective to clinical aspects. I was predominantly investigating the immune responses to these respiratory virus infection, what's common between influenza and coronaviruses, what's different between influenza and coronaviruses, and this was like the heart of my PhD thesis. I defended my thesis last year in June, and I also had the chance to go to the States through a visiting fellowship program, where I had the chance to work with Professor Ivan Dorso on HIV reactivation epigenetics. It was hardcore molecular biology. So the previous HIV experience that I had was more clinical, so I wanted to add a molecular perspective to this. So this was a very different project in that sense. So it was a visiting fellowship for 3 months, but I came back to Germany to the same lab to investigate more about the epigenetic aspects of virus infection. So that's like a very brief overview of my journey and why I decided to do whatever I did and what didn't work out, how I managed these situations. Yeah, everything might look super linear, but I also had my own share of depression, failures, and everything else that everyone would have in a normal life. Yeah, so something that I can reiterate here is experience different academic systems. If you have the possibility to switch different countries and experience the academic systems in different countries, please do it, because this will again help you with different perspectives and will help you make better career decisions, which was actually a great benefit for me from what I could look back and then, yeah, iterate on. So what do I want to do with my life? As you might have already guessed, I want to chase an academic career. So I would like to be a professor, because I also had a lot of great mentors in my life that I look up to and that I want to replicate their career trajectory, which was highly instrumental for me to decide that I would like to be a professor. And as you could have already guessed, it's not a super straightforward or simple journey. It would take quite long to reach there, and you need to be a lot patient and perseverant to get there. Yeah. So I just thought I would also take a few minutes to discuss how the academic trajectory can be very different in different countries. So when I was in India, I was only familiar with the academic system in India or in the broader regions of Asia. But having had a significant stay in Germany, and also having had a little bit of introduction to the academic system in the United States, I would like to spend a few minutes to discuss how these systems are different, which can be very instrumental for you to decide if this is something you want to chase, and also where you want to go in terms of which country and what you want to do if you're someone thinking about having an academic career. So I can start with the Indian system. As we might be familiar with, we typically do a bachelor's. If it's engineering, it's going to be 4 years. If it's going to be arts or pure science, it's going to be 3 years with a BSc. And we typically have to do also a master's. And again, for engineering or for MSc, it's going to be a 2-year master's with a thesis element, which will also have research. If you're someone wanting to stay in research, you definitely will need a PhD. But I also know that if you're someone that's chasing more of a teaching journey in India, I think PhD is becoming a minimum entry requirement. So you definitely need to do a PhD. And this is something you can choose either to do in India, or you can go abroad to do a PhD, depending on whatever your choices are. And the biggest advantage with the Indian academic system is that if you have a PhD, this will most often qualify you for an assistant professorship application. If we're talking about a teaching program. So in India, we have the teaching route and the research route, which are quite exclusive. So teaching route is basically chasing for an assistant professorship, and then you get promoted to an associate professorship, and then to a senior professorship. And then you can stay as a professor, you can retire as a professor emeritus. And I'm very sure our professors can talk a lot more about this trajectory, given that they've taken it. So that's a primarily teaching-oriented pathway, but this can also have research element, like how our faculty members are also involved in a lot of research projects in-house. This can also have a secondary research element. Alternatively, you can also chase a primary research career with the panel that you see below, where after your PhD, you definitely have to go for a postdoc. And this postdoc can be, again, in India, or you can go abroad and come back to India. So this is, again, your choice. So a postdoc will typically last for 3 minimum to 5 maximum. You can stay as a postdoc forever also, but it's not going to be fun. So you do a postdoc, and then you can come back to India, and then you can apply to what's called a scientist D. Something that differentiates the Indian academic system here is that things will start revolving around your biological age. So the minimum entry requirement here would be mostly around 32 years to apply for a scientist D position. So a scientist D is like the minimum, or like the designation that you can get if you want to be a group leader, if you want to have like your own lab. And from there on, you get promoted to scientist E, F, G, H, which is like the scientist and the director of an institute. And if you would like to take this route, you can typically target the CSIR institutes, the ICMR institutes, which are primarily research focused. Or you can also target institutes like IITs, IISc, NIT, which will have like a teaching and research element combined. But more or less, this will be the requirement irrespective of whether you want to go for a teaching route or for a research route. So that's the Indian system from the best of what I know. I might not be the best person to comment, especially on the later aspects, because I've not been there in India, but I would advise you all to talk to your immediate seniors, as well as to our faculty members, because they will be in a better position to talk about this. So what's the case with Germany? So in Germany, people here typically do a 3-year bachelor's, PSc, and also do a master's, which is for 2 years, and both of these will have strong research elements. What you could do is, as I did, you could do a bachelor's and master's in India, or you can do a bachelor's, come to Germany for master's, or you can do bachelor's and master's in India, come to Germany for PhD. There can be all sorts of combinations. But if you're applying for PhD, the requirement would most often be that you have a master's degree, either from Germany or from India or elsewhere. And you do a PhD, which is typically for 4 years, and in life science especially. And with this PhD, you definitely have to go for a postdoc, which again will last for a minimum of 3 years and a maximum of 6 years. And at the end of your 6th year, you need to qualify for a junior group leader position. What you can also do is you can cut short your postdoc period to 3 or 4 years and use the rest of this time to already jump over to a junior group leader position. One very differentiating factor between the Indian academic system and the German academic system is that when you apply for the assistant professorship position or for a postdoc position after your PhD, we have what's called a permanent position. So you hop on to a postdoc, and if you do really well, you can qualify for a scientist D, and then you can keep on going up the hierarchy. Or if you go for an assistant professorship position, if you perform really well, you can go for an associate professorship to senior professorship. And this is not really more or less time dependent in India. But in Germany, what happens is that all of these career stages are extremely timed. So you have like a 4-year period to complete your PhD. You have like a 6-year window after your PhD to complete your postdoc. And at the end of your 6th year, you need to have secured a junior group leader position. If not, you will have to quit academia and get into industry. So that's a very important academic structure that you might have to note. You, of course, are allowed to do 2 postdocs if your first postdoc is for a shorter period. But irrespective of the case, irrespective of how many postdocs you do, it's a 6-year window that you're talking about. So after a group leader position, which again typically lasts for 5 to 6 years, you need to secure a professorship. So what's the qualification for a professorship? You need to do what's called a habilitation. So you need to have lots of papers. You need to bring lots of funding to the institute. You need to have guided doctoral students as a supervisor. You need to get involved in teaching courses, and you need to put together what's called a tenure application or a professorship application, or in Germany, they call it a habilitation. It's telling the university that I am scientifically competent. I have the ability to bring funds. I have the ability to publish high impact papers. I have the ability to mentor students and help them in their career trajectory. And this is a good portfolio for you to hire me as a professor. So that's like proving your scientific abilities in what's called a tenure application or a tenure dossier. It's like a thesis, but it's several pages long, and you need to give proof for all of your abilities. And it goes through a public evaluation and a voting procedure, and then you get your professorship title. It's pretty long, and usually people take 40 years to get this title. But when you get this title, then you're in a legally safe position that the university will give you a lifetime employment. You will not have what's called a retirement. And the professorship, again, has different levels. It's a W1, W2, W3, which is mostly like our assistant professor, associate professor, and senior professor. So that's the German system. And this is more or less the case with the broader regions of Europe also. And then the US or the Canadian system is also more or less the same. So you need a bachelor's. A master's is not really required, but it's most often an advantage. a PhD becomes compulsory. And as I said, you can do your bachelor's and master's in India or in Germany and then come to US. So all combinations here can be possible. And you will definitely need a postdoc, which will be here for 5 years. And at the end of your 5th year, you need to apply for a tenure track assistant professorship, which is again the same tenure application procedure that I discussed. So in your postdoc, you need to be exceptionally well. You need to have published a lot of papers. You need to bring funds, and you need to submit the tenure application here. And this is a 7-year period. After this, you get promoted to an associate professorship, and furthermore to full professorship. That's a mistake here. If you do not want to chase a research trajectory, in US, you have the possibility to take a lecturer route where you will be primarily involved in teaching. And as a side thing, you can also get involved in research projects and research programs. So that's the major difference between the Indian, German, the European, and the American academic system. And I just thought I have to introduce this to you because this might not be something that you might have heard through the other career talks. And I just thought that this might be important for you to know, because if this is something that you would want to commit to on a longer term, then a PhD might make a lot of sense. Because as you can see, irrespective of settling down in India or Europe or America, a PhD becomes a minimum necessity or requirement for all of these career trajectories. Now, what if you do not want to chase an academic trajectory? By that, I mean neither teaching nor research. What can you do? There's actually a lot of other career options as well, for which a PhD can still be instrumental in terms of getting you a better pay and getting you a better designation. And what I see in Germany, the German students doing is that they get into, of course, management or marketing for biotech products. We have a lot of kits in labs, so you can get into the companies, companies of these products to get into management or marketing. You can get into the research and development units of these companies to get into product manufacture, product development, assay development, and things like that, for which you need to have technical knowledge from your PhD. And for these, postdoc may not be relevant. So you don't need to waste a lot of years doing a postdoc, because a PhD can already get you to these career stages. What some students also do is get into medicine. They start what we call as MBBS, and they start from the beginning. But these are super ambitious students and who really want to get into medicine for their specific reasons. You can also get into what's called medical coding. I think this is also quite familiar for you guys in India, because many of our bachelor students will also get into medical coding jobs. I do not have a lot of experience or knowledge in these, but I might be able to put you to the right people if this is something that you would want to specialize in. Something that's also non-canonical is getting into policy making, because there's a lot of policy reforms going on in the context of biotech and biosciences, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic. So you can get into law, and this can also get into the stream of patenting and IP. So you can get into a lot of policy making and biosecurity laws. You can get into education, of course, as teaching, not just in college, but even to schools for biology. That's definitely a possibility. And a lot of people from Germany, they chase this one because it's seen as a really good career option. You can also get into journal editorship, especially if you're someone that has a flair over scientific language. You need to have the technical background from PhD and a good language command to get into journal editorship positions. And you can also go to what's called project management, because there's a lot of research consortium, and there are people who bind these research consortiums together in terms of different universities and scientists from different universities. And this is also a very lucrative job in Germany. So that's giving you a flavor of what you can do with your bachelor's, master's, and PhD if you are someone that does not want to go into academic stream. So I will stop here, and I will wait for you guys to raise your questions that you might have any. But before I do that, I would like to again thank Reka ma'am and Jonah ma'am for the invitation, and for you all for tuning in on a Sunday and to listen to me in the last 1 hour. My parents are here, my family is here. I think this is the best chance for me to tell them thanks for all that they've done for me and for the support that they've given. without which I don't think I would have come to this stage in science as well as in life. With that, I will conclude my talk and maybe remain open for a few of your questions.
Thank you, Srirams. It was a wonderful, enlightening lecture. You have shared your experience and you have given them wonderful information regarding what are the opportunities and how to go about, how to do research. So many things you have shared with the students. I think it will be very, very useful to them. At this point of time, I just want to say a few words about Sriram. He was a student with unwavering commitment, and as you must have seen, his achievements have made us all proud. I think he has not fully shown his achievements, and it may run into pages if we have to write his profile. That much achievements he has, and he has made all of us proud in the biotech department at REC. And he used to be a role model, not only for biotech students but also for other department students. I remember always HOD automobile, he will to his freshers, the students in the automobile department, he will share Dr. Sriram's profile with them and will tell them you have to be like Sriram. So he's a true role model, not only for biotech students, but also for everyone at REC, and his curiosity, his passion, perseverance, you know, all stand a testament for his outstanding character, ever ready to help others. And at this point of time, I also want to extend a heartfelt gratitude to his parents for their unwavering support and contribution to the department and institution. In countless ways, they have supported the department, and I'm really, really grateful to them. They've been contributing to the growth and success of the department on various occasions, whether it's SNAC, NBA, or any other important event. And I thank them for their selfless support for the department and institution. And I wish Dr. Sriram and his whole family all the very best, and God's choicest blessings on them forever and ever. Thank you, Sriram, once again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. These were really, really nice words. And you can call me Sriram. I don't think the doctor is required. And that's true for all of you. You don't need to call me doctor or anything else. You can just call me Sriram. This is more than enough. I think I should also really thank the college because they were supportive through several instances of my life. And until now, even, it's been 12 years since I came to college and I left college. But I'm still in touch with many of the faculty members and I'm consulting them for many of my career decisions. And that's something I would really recommend you all to do, that to stay in touch with faculty members because they have excellent network and they can put you to right people for whatever you want to do in life. So try to have that rapport with the faculty members as well as with your immediate seniors, which was really helpful for me so far, and I'm very sure it will also be helpful for you. Maybe I can stop.
Yeah, thank you, Sriram. So
Sir,
now the students can ask the doubts. Yes.
sir, which of the things like internships that you've done in your B.Tech and M.Tech have paved a easy way to that University of Münster, sir? Can you please say about that internships? Very important internships.
I hope you can still hear me because I hopped on by mistake. So about very important internships, I think I will not be able to differentiate it like that, but anything that's offered by public associations, for example, the Indian Academy of Sciences, the ACSIR Summer Fellowship. I know there's Corona Fellowship that will give you the chance to go outside of India already during your bachelor's. So all of these can be really strong points in your CV. I know that a BT Society and Journal Club already has a huge catalog of these internships. And I know Rekha ma'am, Arun Kumar sir, and many other faculty members will be able to point out which of these internship opportunities are more important. So for me, I wouldn't be able to differentiate or discriminate between the internships offered by institutions. What I would say is, if you already know that you want to pursue a particular field, try to have an internship that's more relevant to that field, and you don't need to make the differentiation based on the institution offering it, but in terms of what you will be working on through an internship opportunity. So I would actually recommend prioritizing internships based on the subjects or fields and not based on the funding agencies, for example. Anything else?
And yeah, good afternoon. I'm Gopalakrishnan. So, what are all the in exams that we need to clear to get into a reputed institutions in Germany? And also, does CGPA play a role in that thing or anything? And what will you say is a better profile for getting into reputed institutions or a good one?
Okay, so from what I understand, your question is more towards how should your preparation be and what should your CGPA be for getting into good institutions after your bachelor's. Did I understand?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. So with regards to the CGPA, I don't think, especially for PhD, you don't need to be a college topper or something. What they really look for during your PhD is your research experience and your fit to the research program that you're applying for. So what kind of research projects you've done during your bachelor's, and more importantly, during your B.Tech thesis, this will be very relevant. For your CGPA, you of course need to have a decent CGPA. Anything above, I would say 7.5 is already good, or 8 is already good. Just ensure that you don't have arrears or something like that. So try to ensure that you are in a good academic standing throughout B.Tech. That's not just for research, but for any career that you want to chase. I think this is quite important. Regarding the competitive exams, if you want to stay in India, I would definitely recommend that you all prepare for GATE, because I think it's very, very easy with our academic curriculum in B.Tech. If you're preparing for your semester exams diligently from your first year until your final year, I think you will already clear GATE. And getting a good percentile is very easy with GATE. This is also true for JAM, which is the entrance exam for IISc. You need to do a little bit of preparation, but if you sit with the previous year's question papers, I think this is already easy to crack. You can also prepare for DBT. I don't know what this exam is called. I think it's called BET. But these three exams are quite easy to prepare with our B.Tech curriculum. So if you clear one of these exams, and if you have a good or decent CGPA, anything above 8, I think you can be sure that you will get an admit in NITs or IITs. Many of my friends were able to get the admits in IITs and NITs. So it's definitely possible for a lot of you. I hope I addressed that question, but if not, you can again unmute and specify.
Yeah, then you told about India, no? Then what about Germany?
Okay, so for Germany, okay, yeah. So if you are planning to pursue masters in Germany after completing your B.Tech, so the requirements will be that you have a good CGPA for sure. So 8+ is definitely okay. I think I also have a lot of friends that I know of who had somehow between 7 to 8, but they still ended up getting admit. So you're still in a good position if you have anything above 7. You need to have a language score, so typically IELTS or TOEFL. I don't know the IELTS structure, but for TOEFL, if you have scored above 100 on a scale of 120, I think you're still good. And they do not really require GRE for Europe, so TOEFL alone is okay. For masters, universities usually require you to take up like an online entrance exam, which is like a multiple choice exam to test your basics. And for some programs, especially if you're applying for MS, which is like a research-based course. You might be invited for a Skype interview or a Zoom interview where you will be asked questions about your previous projects and how do you see yourself fitting into their research program, what you want to do with your academic career, some basic questions. Where they will try to determine if you have a clear picture of what kind of research you want to do, which field you want to specialize on, things like that. So for Germany, requirements will be that a decent CGPA, a good research experience, but this is easy if you are doing your bachelor's thesis or an internship. You need TOEFL or IELTS score, and of course the general documents like statement of purpose, letter of recommendation. Yeah, these are all constant. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And what about the expenses?
Okay, so expenses, I may not be the best person to comment about expenses because I came here for a PhD, which gave me a scholarship. So I took care of my expenses through my scholarship. For masters, the typical situation would be that you take an educational loan and then come here and then repay it when you get your job. The advantage in Germany, unlike US, is that most of the public universities do not charge a tuition fee. So you only need to take an education loan for meeting your expenses here. And I think from what I know from my friends who came here for their masters, they've already repaid their loan. So this is still possible. So I think this is the only information I can give you with respect to the finance part, just because I've not taken that route. But I think I can put you to people who've come here for their masters who will be in a position to give you better information in this regard.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt. I just want to thank Dr. Rekha and the whole BT Society members for arranging this, and all my dear students for patiently listening to Sriram. One small request: if Sriram's father is interested in sharing certain things with us, I welcome him to give his feedback. Thank you.
Well, ma'am.
Good afternoon, madam.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to
Sir.
all. I hope I'm audible to all.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes,
I'm,
sir.
I'm Sriram's father, and my home minister, my son-in-law, my daughter are all around us. I've been hearing this, and I feel honored. I thank RECBT for giving me this opportunity. Thank you. Wishing you all the very best in your careers. Thank you, madam.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
So there's a question from Vaishali. So does networking has anything to do with securing an academic position abroad? This is definitely true. So you need to be involved in networking. You always need to get in touch with other PIs during conferences and meetings here. You also need to be active in social media. You need to communicate your research, your papers, your projects, because securing an academic career, one thing is about your credentials. By credentials, I mean papers, funding, your teaching records, but it's also a lot about your visibility as a researcher. And this is something that only you can do for yourself. So you need to go to conferences and meetings and then approach other scientists, talk about their work, talk about your work. So networking is definitely an important element. There's a question from Haripriya N.
Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yes.
So actually, do you think German language is really important to take up masters in Germany?
This is a very important question. Thanks for raising this. So for PhD, I did not have this problem. There was no language requirement for me because when it comes to a research setting, everybody speaks English. They're supposed to write their papers in English. So English becomes the basic language. But for masters, you don't need the language certificate for securing securing a position or a seat for your master's, but you will need a language certification for applying for your visa. But from what I know, this is actually quite easy to learn. So you can first have your applications done, and if you secure an admit, you can then approach the German language courses in Chennai, and then take up like a super intensive course, which is for 1 month or 2 months to get the first 2 levels of German, which is already enough for your visa, but also enough to manage your living in Germany. Thanks for raising this question because it's important.
Thank you.
Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Thank you, sir, for giving us this amazing lecture, and we indeed feel really privileged to having connected with an alumni who has done so much, and this whole time it was really inspiring, and I personally learned a lot, and I've been
பிளான் பண்ணி லூஸ் மாரி ஒன்று இருன்னு தானே சொன்னா மம்மி மாத்தி மாத்தி ஆடி இருக்கிற நீ இங்க வெளியில வரணும் இது வீட்டுல இருக்கு இதை அட்டன் பண்ணணும் சும்மா 2 பேர் ஆகக்கூடாது ஏதோ ஒரு ஸ்டாண்டர்டா இரு ஒண்ணுமே நினை
I think Haripriya's mic is on.
Yeah, I think it's clear now.
Okay. So we really thank you for having connected with us, sir, and you have been an inspiration to the previous batches and currently to us also. And I really look forward to being in a position where you are today. And my doubt through this, while listening to this lecture, was you talked about a lot of international fellowships, and my doubt is that do we have to tweak our CVs according to the internships that we are applying for? Like let's say we're making a segregation between the national ones and international ones.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we tweak our CVs based on the projects and internships that we've previously attended?
Okay, this is again a very important question, especially at bachelor's level. So you of course need to tweak your CV depending on what you're applying to, but you don't need to remove or change your previous experiences to go in line with what you're applying to. By tweaking, what I mean in this context is you don't need to put in a lot of information that will not really help you. I mean, imagine a scenario where you're applying for a research internship or a research program of your master's, and if somebody is sitting in the selection committee, they will be more interested to know what your research skills are, what kind of techniques you know, what are the previous projects you've worked on, what are the previous internships you've worked on, who are your previous advisors. These are the only relevant information that they will want to know. Of course, if you have presentations in conferences, you should also add this. So anything that's science related, you need to add it. I see that a lot of people add, for example, a lot of their NGO activities, which are all super important, by the way. I do not want to undermine on these. It's very important to get involved in these too. But if you have a limit on the number of pages of your CV, for example, applications usually ask for maximum 2, maximum 3 pages. And in these 3 pages, you need to decide what's more relevant and important for the current application. And if you're applying for a research program, you need to focus heavily on your research skills, and you need to sell the kind of techniques that you know, the kind of projects you know. So you don't need to remove your previous projects if you think that these projects are not perfectly in line with what you want to do in your life. But this will definitely be strong points to give the selection committee an impression that you have had research experience. You know what research is like. You know some techniques which can be applied to other fields. And yeah, so I would recommend that you keep all of this in your CV. For example, I started with chemical engineering projects with Anita ma'am, and I still put them in my CV. And I learned a lot through these projects too. And I would want the selection committee to know that I also worked on it, but there was a shift in my career trajectory. As long as you explain all of these changes and your past experiences, I think you're in a good shape. So tweak your CV in terms of what's relevant. You don't need to remove your previous experiences. So that would be my simple answer.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Any other?
Will it be better to pursue your future in after studying in Germany itself, or it will be better if we return to India?
I think the answer to this question depends on a lot of factors. One is what you want to do. Two is, I think we also need to factor in our family and where they want you to be in. Yeah, I think a lot of things will depend on what you want to do and where you want to settle down at the end. I mean, as we saw in the presentation, for example, if you want to pursue an academic career is possible everywhere, but they all have their own expectations and requirements, and you just need to decide what kind of requirements you can prepare yourself for. You also need to think that you will have milestones in your personal life. You also will have your family. So all of these factors need to be taken into consideration to decide where you want to settle down. And no place is better or worse. I think they're all just different. So we don't need to necessarily grade which place is better, which place is not good. They're all just different. The funding scenarios, the career opportunities in different countries are different. So I think it's very hard to answer where one
Yeah, I
wants to settle
understand.
down. I think that's already a question that I'm trying to address myself. So I do not have a ready-made answer at this moment. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand it. Thank you.
Yes, so I think the doubt session is over. Anybody else is having any doubt? So, yes, thank you, Sriram. And thank
Thanks a
you.
lot, ma'am, for having me. I think it was really nice to see all the students, and I think it felt nice to get back to the college days virtually.
Yes.
Yeah, also thanks to all of you for tuning in on a Sunday. I really appreciate it. And you can get my contacts from the faculty members, and you can write to me through WhatsApp or through mail, and I can help you in whatever ways. I may not have answers to all the questions, but I will try to put you to my friends who might have better answers to some of your questions.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, Priyanka, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. As we conclude our first session of Pros Connect, I would like to extend our heartfelt thanks to everyone who made this event possible. First and foremost, our deepest gratitude goes to Dr. Sriram Kumar, Postdoctoral Fellow at the Institute of Virology, Münster, Germany. Your insightful lecture and engaging session has provided us with invaluable career guidance on opportunities and higher studies. Thank you for sharing your expertise and experience with us from schooling to your virology, choosing career as virology and now as a postdoctoral fellow. A special thanks to our management, our department, the club, and the core team whose hard work and dedication have ensured the smooth execution of this event. Last but not least, we are grateful to all the students for your active participation. Your enthusiasm and curiosity drive the success of Pros Connect. We look forward to seeing you at our future sessions as we bridge to gap the continue between current students and accomplished professionals. Together, we can create a vibrant and supportive community dedicated to a career growth and academic excellence. Thank you once again and have a great day ahead. Thank you all.
Thank you, Priyanka. And I think we can end the session here. And I hope that when Sriram comes to India, he'll be visiting our college and we can have the direct interaction. And I would like to thank Sriram's parents and Johanna ma'am and all the students. So in future, we'll be having more sessions. So I think we can end the session. And thank you, Sriram, because today it's Sunday. And I know it will be, hectic work for you. In spite
No,
of
no,
that,
no.
you took some time. Right. Thank you. Thanks all. So we can wind up.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Yes.